pandemic. Breaking connections to the world. Empowering language on humanity. Let's bring the world of learning in one channel. Welcome to Business Combinations English TV.
Hi there! How are you doing? I hope you are all safe and sound together with your family and friends. I am Sir Larry and welcome to this episode of Grade 10 English lesson for the first week of the second quarter. The most essential learning competency or MELC for this episode is observe the language of research, campaigns, and advocacies. With the topic, language of research, campaigns, and advocacies. After accomplishing your learning tasks and watching this episode, you are all expected to gain a clear understanding of the language of persuasion and its features in the field of writing. This lesson focuses on observing and understanding the common language used in the fields of research, campaigns, and advocacies. As you journey through this lesson, you are expected to gain a clear understanding of the language of persuasion and different language features employed when writing in these fields of interest. Language plays an essential role in our lives. More than just serving as a way for us to communicate with one another, language also enables us to inform, entertain, influence, and persuade others. This usually is the case when we engage in various fields of interest like doing research work, campaigning for a specific cause, and supporting an advocacy. While the said fields differ at some extent, one common aspect that can be observed among them is the use of common language. Research makes use of a formal, academic, and persuasive language to communicate discussions and present corresponding findings for variables studied. Language greatly matters in research as it enables the researcher to effectively communicate valuable results to his or her target readers. The readers, meanwhile, will be able to trust and make use of these facts and findings depending on how clearly the researcher explains them in a particular language. In the case of research studies, the language a researcher uses also adds up to how reliable and convincing the research findings can be. For some, understanding the language of research can also mean becoming familiar and acquainted with terminologies such as theories, concepts, variables, hypotheses, and samples. On the other hand, a campaign, usually social or political in nature, is technically defined as a planned set of activities that people carry out to attain a certain goal or objective. A campaign speech, basically, is a well-planned speaking activity that aims to excite, persuade, and/or motivate listeners while convincing them to adhere to the speaker's ideas. Convincing the listeners can be achieved by employing strong and emphasized persuasive language, leaving them with good and impressive points that they can remember. And advocacy, meanwhile, refers to activities that argue, plead, support, or favor a certain cause. Various causes for advocacy usually aim to influence decision-making, especially with issues involving social, political, environmental, and sometimes economic perspectives. While advocacy may be similar in campaign, in some points, advocacy speeches present strong points that may either support or contradict existing policies and legal mandates on specific topics or issues. While each one differs when it comes to the degree of formality and use of subject-specific terminologies, how each resorts to the use of persuasion as a technique is always notable. Now, here are some of the language features or language devices usually employed in persuasive writing. First, emotive language. we have modal verbs, involving the reader, rhetorical questions, using of evidence, repetition, adjectives and adverbs, association, bandwagon, and the experts. First in the list, emotive language. This involves the use of words that evoke emotions and make people feel a certain way. Through the use of words that appeal to the emotion, the writer can sound more convincing. This is a commonly used technique when writing headlines in newspapers or delivering speeches. Second, modal verbs. The use of words that express modality or how likely something is going to happen helps adjust the level of certainty of events to suit arguments. When carefully chosen, these words such as may, might, will, must, shall, can, could, would, or ought to help improve the quality of persuasive writing. Third is involving the reader. This is done through the use of personal pronouns like you, your, we, our, and indicative words such as together. Using these words establishes a connection between the author and the reader. This way, the issue is made personal and more important to the reader. Fourth, rhetorical questions. These are questions that are not supposed to be answered. Instead, they are asked for effect, to illustrate a point or let the reader think. The use of questions that sometimes state the obvious can convince the reader to agree on the points being presented to them. Fifth, using of evidence. This involves the use of facts, figures, or quotes from experts to highlight the writer's authority and make the arguments presented more convincing. Sixth, repetition. This technique involves repeating keywords, phrases, or ideas to appeal to the readers. 7. The use of adjectives and adverbs. Using carefully selected adjectives and adverbs makes it possible for the writer to influence how the readers feel. 8. Association. This technique tries to link an object or an idea with something already liked or desired by the target audience, such as wealth, success, pleasure, and security. 9. Bandwagon. Commonly used in advertisements, this persuasion technique makes the audience believe the idea that everyone is doing it, or that everyone likes something. And last, experts. This means relying on expert advice from trusted people like doctors, scientists, and other professionals for things that the audience do not know. The idea that these experts are risking their credibility to support an object or idea makes the persuasion more effective. These are just some of the many techniques used in persuasion. It is important to understand that different techniques work for different purposes. And here are your learning tasks for this week. First, true or false. This is also the learning task 1 from your modules. You are going to read the statements carefully. Then, write true or false on your answer sheets. Second, identification. This is also the learning task 2 from your module. It says here that you have to identify the type of persuasive technique being described. You are going to choose from the options provided and you write only the answers in your answer sheets. Last, is an advocacy material or the learning task 4 from your module. Look for at least one example of a campaign or advocacy material from old newspapers or magazines that you have at home. Cut the said example and paste it on a sheet of paper. However, if you did not find any example, you may also prepare your own advocacy material. Then, write 5 sentences that describe the language and persuasion techniques used in the sample you have chosen. You may pause this video for the sample advocacy material, or you may refer to our lesson from your modules. And that wraps up this episode. Thank you for watching, and I hope that you will still continue to learn amid the pandemic. Let us all meet again on the next episode, only here at Visites MNH's English TV.